In 21 days, I was in Kailash. I took one strand of what is there on that mountain. You won't believe. In 2.5 hours, I was almost 10 to 15 years younger than what I was at that moment.
Far above the windswept plateaus of western Tibet rises a mountain so sharply sculpted it seems almost unreal. Mount Kailash, standing at 6,638 meters, has defied climbers, captivated pilgrims, and mystified explorers for centuries. Yet it is more than just a sacred peak. It features a near-perfect pyramidal shape, razor-sharp ridges, and an isolated presence. Ancient traditions treat it as the very axis of the universe. For decades, scientists, monks, and adventurers alike have approached its base with awe. And now, startling new observations suggest that Mount Kailash is hiding something. Let's get started. Geographical and geological marvel. Mount Kailash, rising to an altitude of 6,638 meters, or 21,778 feet, in the remote western reaches of Tibet, is a geological spectacle unlike almost any other peak on Earth. Located in the Ngari prefecture within the Trans-Himalaya range, the mountain commands the landscape with a striking verticality, standing in near isolation among a series of lower, jagged peaks. Its sharp rise from the surrounding plateau gives it a dramatic prominence, visible from tens of kilometers away, and its height places it among the significant peaks of the Trans-Himalaya. Though it is dwarfed by the Himalayan giants to the south, such as Mount Everest, peaking at 8,848 meters, and Kanchenjunga, which rises to 8,586 meters. The region itself is characterized by arid, high-altitude desert conditions, with the Tibetan Plateau averaging over 4,500 meters above sea level, and the mountain's sudden elevation accentuates the visual contrast between its stark cliffs and the surrounding valleys. What makes Mount Kailash particularly remarkable is its almost perfect pyramidal shape, with 4 sharply defined ridges that converge at a pointed summit, giving the appearance of precise symmetry. Unlike many Himalayan peaks, which are jagged and irregular due to ongoing glacial and tectonic activity, Kailash's form is strikingly uniform from multiple perspectives. The ridges are nearly vertical in places, and each face of the mountain is sharply edged, with striations and grooves that run in near parallel lines down the slope. The peak is part of a north-south trending fault zone that formed during the collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates roughly 50 million years ago, an event that created the entire Himalayan and Trans-Himalayan region. The tectonic pressure folded and uplifted sedimentary and metamorphic layers, and subsequent glacial carving during the Pleistocene epoch sculpted the mountain's distinct faces. The rock composition of Kailash further contributes to its dramatic appearance. The peak is primarily composed of sedimentary rocks, such as sandstone, conglomerate, and limestone, interspersed with metamorphic rocks like gneiss and schist that have been subjected to intense pressure and heat. These layers are highly resistant to erosion in some sections, while other, softer strata have been worn away over millennia, creating the deeply incised ridges and sharp faces. The surrounding glaciers, though small compared to the massive ice flows of the central Himalayas, have carved out U-shaped valleys and deposited moraine ridges at the base. Seasonal snow accumulates on the ridges and then melts rapidly due to strong solar radiation at high altitudes, exposing the bare rock and emphasizing the mountain's sculpted features. One of the most fascinating aspects of Mount Kailash is that it has never been climbed, preserving its untouched form in contrast to nearly every other peak of comparable height. While many Himalayan peaks, even those in remote areas, have been summited by expeditions since the early 20th century, Kailash has remained unscaled due to both religious reverence and extreme technical difficulty. Early Western explorers in the 19th and 20th centuries including Sir Francis Younghusband during his 1904 British expedition to Tibet, documented the mountain extensively from its base and nearby passes, but refrained from attempting to climb it. Modern authorities and local Buddhist, Hindu, and Bon communities prohibit ascents, considering the mountain sacred. This has ensured that its sharp ridges and distinctive pyramidal geometry remain undisturbed by human activity, preserving natural erosion patterns and glacial grooves in pristine condition. The landscape surrounding Mount Kailash enhances its visual drama and geological interest. To the east lies the Gangdese Range, while to the west, the lakes region of Ngari, including Lake Manasarovar and Lake Rakshastal, creates a stark contrast with the towering peak. These high-altitude lakes, fed by glacial meltwaters, reflect the mountain's slopes and add to the sense of isolation and sacredness that has captivated pilgrims for centuries. Numerous rivers originate in the valleys around Kailash, including the Sutlej, Karnali, and Brahmaputra tributaries, carrying glacial runoff far across the Tibetan Plateau and into South Asia. These rivers, together with the surrounding glaciers, contribute not only to the region's geomorphology, but also to its ecological and hydrological significance, creating a complex system of water flow in an otherwise arid landscape. Geological surveys and satellite imagery conducted in the late 20th and early 21st centuries have confirmed the mountain's sharp angular geometry, as well as the presence of deep erosion channels and moraine deposits at its base. A 2005 survey by the Chinese Academy of Sciences utilized high-resolution topographical mapping and remote sensing to document the four ridges and the summit's near symmetry, noting that the mountain's appearance is enhanced by its isolation from adjacent peaks. Glacial remnants on the northern and western slopes show evidence of repeated advance and retreat cycles during the last glacial maximum, which ended around 11,700 years ago, indicating that ice movement has played a significant role in sculpting the mountain's faces. Measurements indicate that the ridges descend sharply for over 2,000 meters in places before merging with the surrounding plateau, creating a dramatic vertical relief that reinforces its iconic shape. Despite being geologically natural, Mount Kailash's perfection in form has long intrigued scholars, geographers, and pilgrims alike. Its four faces appear almost uniform from multiple angles, yet each face displays unique erosional features, including vertical striations, rock fractures, and glacial polish, offering evidence of natural formation processes. The interplay of sedimentary layering, tectonic folding, and glacial carving has created a peak that appears designed, though it is fully explained by geological mechanisms. Researchers note that the mountain's striking geometry, combined with its isolation and the surrounding plateau's flat expanses, makes it appear larger and more symmetrical than its actual dimensions would suggest, creating a visual illusion of near perfection. In addition to the main peak, Mount Kailash is flanked by several smaller peaks and ridges that form part of the Gangdese Batholith, a series of granitic and metamorphic intrusions underlying much of western Tibet. The batholith is associated with high-grade metamorphism and has contributed to the mountain's resistance to erosion compared with surrounding rock formations. At its base, the terrain is punctuated by moraines, glacial outwash, and boulder fields, all of which testify to repeated glaciation cycles over the past several million years. Even in satellite images, the sharpness of the ridges and the clarity of the mountain's faces stand out in contrast to the more irregular terrain of nearby peaks, reinforcing its status as a geological anomaly in appearance if not in formation. The fact that it remains unclimbed, with surrounding glaciers and valleys largely untouched, preserves its raw, sculpted appearance, allowing both pilgrims and scientists to witness a mountain that is at once geologically natural and visually extraordinary, a rare fusion of raw nature and iconic form. Spiritual and cultural power. Mount Kailash in western Tibet is not only a geological marvel, but also one of the most spiritually significant mountains in the world, revered across multiple religious traditions for millennia. For Hindus, the peak is considered the earthly abode of Lord Shiva, one of the principal deities of the Hindu pantheon. Shiva is worshipped as the destroyer and transformer, the master of meditation, and the ultimate spiritual guide. And Kailash is seen as the central axis of the universe, where cosmic energy converges. Pilgrimages to the region, known as yatra, have been documented since at least the 7th century CE, with early accounts by travelers such as the Chinese monk Xuanzang, who journeyed through western Tibet in the 630s CE. In Hindu cosmology, Mount Kailash is associated with the Himalayan range and is described as the source of 4 sacred rivers, the Indus, Sutlej, Brahmaputra, and Karnali, which flow from its slopes to nourish civilizations in South Asia. These rivers reinforce the mountain's spiritual symbolism as a life-giving source and cosmic anchor, connecting its remote, high-altitude presence with the fertile plains thousands of kilometers away. For Buddhists, Kailash is equally sacred as the home of Demchok, also known as Chakra Samvara, a tantric deity representing supreme bliss and enlightenment. In Tibetan Buddhism, the mountain is linked to the practice of kora, or circumambulation, which is believed to purify negative karma and bring spiritual merit. Historical records indicate that the Tibetan Buddhist traditions surrounding Kailash were formalized between the 8th and 12th centuries CE, during the height of the Tibetan Empire under rulers such as Songtsen Gampo, and later during the reign of King Trisong Detsen, when Buddhism became institutionalized in Tibet. The mountain is central to the Nyingma and Sakya schools, with monasteries such as Chu Gompa and Dirafuk Monastery serving as pilgrimage bases. In Buddhist ritual, the clockwise kora around the mountain symbolizes alignment with the universe, while a counterclockwise path is associated with tantric rites, reflecting the complex interplay of sacred geography and religious practice. In Jainism, Mount Kailash holds unique importance as Ashtapada, the site where the first Tirthankara, Rishabhadeva, also called Adinatha, is believed to have attained moksha, or liberation from the cycle of birth and death. This association dates back to early Jain texts, including the Kalpa Sutra, composed around the 4th to 5th century CE. Rishabhadeva's connection to Kailash elevates the mountain as an ultimate spiritual destination for Jains, although most Jain pilgrimages are concentrated in India. Nevertheless, historical accounts from the medieval period describe small groups of Jain ascetics traveling to the region to pay homage to the site, emphasizing its pan-Indian significance despite its remote location. The recognition of Kailash as a locus of liberation reinforces the broader theme of the mountain as a universal spiritual axis across religions. The indigenous Bon religion, which predates Buddhism in Tibet, also regards Mount Kailash as central to its cosmology. Bon cosmology depicts Kailash as the center of the universe, the seat of all spiritual forces, and the dwelling place of Shenrab Miwo, the founder of Bon. Pilgrimage routes and ritual sites around Kailash are integral to Bon ceremonial practice, including offerings at sacred springs, rock formations, and prayer shrines that dot the high-altitude plateau. Anthropological studies of the Ngari region document Bon ceremonies as early as the 10th century CE, often incorporating fire rituals, mantra recitations, and circumambulations of the mountain. These practices continue today, preserving Bon cultural identity despite the spread of Tibetan Buddhism. The physical act of pilgrimage around Kailash, known as the 52-kilometer Kora, remains a central spiritual practice for adherents of all 4 traditions. The circumambulation involves navigating harsh terrain at altitudes ranging from 4,500 meters at the starting point near Darchin village to the Dolma La Pass at 5,636 meters, which is the highest point of the route. Pilgrims endure extreme cold, high winds, and low oxygen levels while performing ritual prostrations and prayers, a journey that typically takes 3 days for most travelers, although devoted pilgrims may take up to 2 weeks completing the circuit while performing full-body prostrations. The Kora is considered both a physical and spiritual test, symbolizing the journey toward enlightenment and the purification of karma, reinforcing Kailash's role as an axis mundi in religious consciousness. The sacred status of Mount Kailash has directly influenced the preservation of its natural environment. Unlike many Himalayan peaks, it remains unclimbed, with formal prohibitions enforced by local religious authorities and the Tibetan government, which respect the mountain's sanctity. This restriction has left its geological features, glaciers, and surrounding valleys largely untouched, allowing pilgrims and researchers alike to witness a landscape that is both culturally sacred and ecologically pristine. Historically, the mountain has inspired artistic and literary representations across the Himalayan region. Ancient Tibetan thangkas, dating from the 12th to the 15th centuries, depict Kailash as a cosmic mountain with radiating energy lines and divine presences, often including figures of Shiva, Demchok, and Shenrab Miwo. Hindu and Jain manuscripts also include stylized depictions of Kailash as the center of the universe, illustrating its symbolic importance in religious thought and cosmology. In addition, European travelers in the 19th and 20th centuries, including Alexandre David Néel in the early 20th century and Heinrich Harrer from the 1930s to the 1940s, recorded the mountain's spiritual significance, describing local rituals, pilgrimages, and oral histories that emphasized Kailash's sanctity. These historical accounts provide important context for understanding the continuity of religious practice and the mountain's enduring role in multiple spiritual traditions, mysteries, patterns, and speculative claims. Mount Kailash is often described as looking too perfect to be entirely natural. Early Western explorers contributed significantly to this perception. During the British expedition to Tibet in 1904, Sir Francis Younghusband noted the mountain's exceptional geometric clarity, describing it as appearing almost sculpted rather than randomly formed. These observations were echoed later by travelers such as Alexandre David Néel in the early 20th century, who emphasized how Kailash's symmetrical form stood out against the surrounding landscape. Modern technology has reinforced these impressions rather than diminished them. High-resolution satellite imagery shows that the mountain's ridges converge toward the summit in a remarkably uniform manner, with parallel grooves and erosion lines that accentuate its architectural appearance. While these features have inspired speculation about artificial shaping, they remain fully consistent with known geological processes. Claims of unusual patterns extend beyond the mountain's upper slopes to its base, where some observers have pointed to what they interpret as deliberate geometric arrangements in rock formations, terraces, and glacial deposits. With the widespread availability of satellite imagery in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, enthusiasts began comparing aerial views of Mount Kailash to images of other ancient or sacred sites around the world. These interpretations often focus on linear features and repeating shapes that appear significant when viewed from above. However, geologists explain that such formations are common in high-altitude environments shaped by glaciers, sedimentary layering, and erosion. Differential erosion, combined with sunlight and shadow at extreme elevations, can create the illusion of regular patterns where none were intentionally formed. More expansive speculative theories propose that Mount Kailash is part of a global network of sacred sites, allegedly connected by ley lines or hidden geometric alignments. Advocates of these ideas claim alignments linking Kailash with locations such as Machu Picchu, the pyramids of Giza, and Stonehenge, suggesting the existence of an ancient, planet-wide design. These assertions rely largely on modern coordinate systems, symbolic geometry, and selective measurements, rather than archaeological or historical evidence. While it is factually true that Kailash sits near the sources of several major rivers, the Indus, Sutlej, Brahmaputra, and Karnali, and holds spiritual importance across Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Bon, no credible evidence supports the idea that it was intentionally aligned with distant sites across continents. Another layer of mystery comes from reports of unusual energy sensations or electromagnetic disturbances near the mountain. Some visitors have described dizziness, heightened awareness, or interference with electronic devices, leading to claims that Kailash emits or concentrates unusual energies. These accounts occasionally appear in popular media and documentaries, but systematic scientific investigation has not confirmed them. Geophysical surveys conducted in the region by the Chinese Academy of Sciences and international research teams have found no anomalous electromagnetic fields or gravitational irregularities beyond what is expected from high-altitude geology and naturally occurring magnetic minerals. While subjective experiences are commonly reported by pilgrims, they are considered anecdotal and cannot be reliably measured or reproduced. Scientific explanations for Mount Kailash's appearance are well established and rooted in plate tectonics and glacial history. The mountain owes its existence to the collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates, which began around 50 million years ago and uplifted both the Himalayas and the Trans-Himalaya. Alternating layers of sedimentary and metamorphic rock created bands of varying hardness, which eroded at different rates and produced sharply defined faces and ridges. During the Pleistocene epoch, repeated cycles of glacial advance and retreat carved deep valleys and polished rock surfaces, further sharpening the mountain's geometry. Ongoing freeze-thaw cycles and seasonal snowmelt continue to accentuate fissures and striations, enhancing the impression of precision without any need for artificial intervention. Cultural and religious traditions play a major role in shaping how these physical features are perceived. Mount Kailash is regarded as the abode of Lord Shiva in Hinduism, the residence of Demchok in Tibetan Buddhism, the site of liberation of Rishabhadeva in Jainism, and a cosmic center in the Bon religion. Pilgrims from across Asia perform the 52-kilometer Kora, or circumambulation, around the mountain, often reporting profound spiritual experiences. Scholars of anthropology and religious studies note that such experiences can intensify the interpretation of natural features as meaningful or symbolic. Historical records show that this sense of wonder is not a modern invention. Chinese pilgrims such as Xuanzang in the 7th century CE described the mountain in reverent and almost otherworldly terms, emphasizing its isolation and distinctive form. Tibetan chronicles continued this tradition, framing Kailash as the axis of the world. European travelers later reinforced these impressions in their writings, contributing to a growing body of literature that blended observation with awe. These accounts helped cement the mountain's reputation as something fundamentally different from other peaks. Modern research has allowed Mount Kailash to be studied in unprecedented detail without violating its sacred status. Satellite missions such as Landsat 8 and Sentinel-2, along with advanced GIS mapping, have documented its ridges, valleys, and glacial systems with high precision. These data confirm that all measurable aspects of the mountain fall within the range of natural geomorphology. Researchers also emphasize the role of pareidolia, the human tendency to perceive patterns and intentional design in complex natural forms. When combined with cultural expectations and spiritual narratives, This cognitive tendency can make natural features seem purposeful or engineered. Scientific investigation shows that tectonics, erosion, and glaciation are sufficient to explain its form. Yet the mountain continues to inspire speculation, reverence, and imagination. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.